Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about crypto and finance, and what better way to start this video off by saying the US is in some serious trouble. Around the world, we are seeing a major move away from the US dollar, and it is at no surprise. The US has absolutely printed themselves into oblivion, and now they want you to answer for it. They are telling you that we are about to see economic catastrophes within the US if we do not raise the debt ceiling and if we do not print more money. But the fact is that, guess what? It does not matter if we raise the debt ceiling. It does not matter if we default on our debt, because guess what? We are going to have consistent debt forever, because as we do look at what we bring in a year and as we do look at the spending, it is outrageous. We bring in a total of $4.9 trillion in revenue per year. The spending is $6.9 trillion. And we can see the debt service is $900 billion. Social Security is $1.2 trillion. Medicare is $750 billion. Defense is $750 billion. The total is $3.6 trillion from these areas. There's no default on June 1st. Just stop the other stuff. And here we have US can avoid default in July if Treasury can make it through June cash crunch, Congressional Budget Office says. The thing is, though, is that they want you to answer for this. What they will do is they will raise taxes for those that are already taxed to oblivion, and they will continue to have other people answer for their problems. And this is exactly why I've said that we need to also ditch the dollar. If you are within the US, and if you have been watching the banking crisis brew, then you should know that right now it's not safe to have your US dollars in a bank account. It is also not safe to be only within cash. I've actually diversified outside of cash within crypto, gold, silver, and many other areas of interest, because it just makes sense. Right now, you are seeing an absolute slaughterfest of your currency and also the value of your currency. And as we do look at the joke that is the US, we know that CPI reports are completely falsified information. As we actually look at this, we can see inflation rate eases to 4.9% in April, less than expectations. The biggest problem around all of this is that it doesn't include the crucial areas to focus on, meaning electricity, gas, food, etc. This is a big deal, and we need to make sure that we are focusing on the right information, because if we don't, then we will get completely screwed over. They are lying to you every single day. And the biggest problem around all of this, where it all starts, is the fact that we printed 80% of all US dollars in existence in the last 22 months going back to 2021. From $4 trillion in January of 2020 to $20 trillion in October of 2021. And now they want to start the printer press yet again. The biggest problem that I see around this is the fact that Janet Yellen, the same one threatening that we are about to see financial catastrophes in the US if we do not raise that debt ceiling and start printing money, well, she's the same individual that wants to print almost $18 trillion by 2030, raising the debt to $50 trillion. But while doing so, well, guess what? Our tax obligations, or I should say our debt obligations, are going to be our tax problem. Because what they want to do is raise taxes to offset the interest rate on that debt that we loan out. Again, this is why, to escape that cycle of you paying for their problems, you need to diversify outside of the US dollar. And again, one of the biggest things to focus on is war. I believe that we are going to push ourselves into war because we don't want to see other nations take over and the US dollar lose its reserve currency standard. For the longest time, we have protected the US dollar standard because of war. We do see breaking news. Janet Yellen says the United States and other countries in the group of 7 could take action to counter China's economic coercion. Rhetoric is heating up. Though Treasury officials have said the US isn't seeking to decouple economically from China. Chinese officials have suggested possible retaliation if its companies continue to face harsh treatment in America. The biggest problem around all of this is the fact that China is already working with Russia and the Brics nations to move away from the US dollar, as they see it as absolutely worthless because of, well, you already guessed it, Janet Yellen. See, this is the problem. If we do not go to war and protect the reserve currency standard, well, then the US loses it all. The only reason why the US is in the standard that it is today is because of that US dollar standard. But when they lose that, well, that's the last thread that they are holding on to. Then what does the US become? Well, the US just becomes a third world country, considering the fact that our debt obligations is absolutely ridiculous, and we continue to print our money into oblivion, and we continue to operate on a loss year over year over year. This is not sustainable at all, and they want to print another $18 trillion within the next 7 years. And we already see how $20 trillion, or I should say $16 trillion in 1 year brought us to, which is, guess what? Inflation is brewing. When you go to the store, it's at least $50 every single time. And also, whenever you go to fill up your gas tank or pay your utility bills, we could also feel the pain. We don't need a CPI report to tell us that inflation is out of hand. We don't need this falsified information. But also, the banks. The banks are extremely panicked. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, America's baby, if you will, because this is the largest bank in the US and they protect it as if it's its own child, is urging the SEC to launch an investigation into bets against bank stocks. Now, this is an individual that just made $2 billion from a collapsed bank that the US government actually pushed through. And it was illegal to do so because then Jamie Dimon was in control of over 10% of deposits in the US. Talk about throwing stones from a glass house. They should have done this for mining companies when they were spoofing the market. Things are getting strange. And yes, I personally believe that we are about to see a much larger problem here. And this is also, again, why you need to avoid the banks. What do you see over here? The IMF says Zimbabwe gold-backed digital currency a potential threat to financial stability. One of the biggest arguments that we always see around these major names like the IMF or the World Economic Forum, or even within the US, we also see people from the Treasury or even from the Fed stepping up and saying this is a big threat to financial stability. Even around crypto, right? Crypto has become a threat to financial stability, which is wild to me considering the fact that crypto at its all-time highs was worth $3 trillion. I mean, yes, that's a large amount of money, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really pose a threat to financial stability, especially considering the fact that the infrastructure around the financial sector is really not based upon the crypto rails. There's nothing around crypto that is based upon the financial infrastructure around the US. They always say that it's a threat to financial stability because they fear what could happen if we do see things like this become popular and become the trend. But to me personally, I believe that that is going to be the case. I believe that gold-backed digital currencies are going to be the future. We see even in the US, Texas committee passes bill to create 100% reserve gold and silver-backed transactional currencies. Hence why I said, make sure you are stockpiling gold and silver. I'm telling you right now, as we do look at what's happening around the US and as we do look at what's happening around currencies and the financial system, if you are strictly only in the US dollar, or if you are even holding cash, I want you to all understand that the only reason to be holding cash right now is if you are going to plan on buying lower on certain assets. If you're not, then I have no idea why you would be holding US dollars or even holding money in your bank account. I've said it time and time again, the banks are extremely weak right now, and what they are saying over on Twitter and demanding the SEC to look into bets against bank stocks and even trying to ban short selling of bank stocks is absolutely wild to me, and it's a big red flag around the banks. But also the US dollar, we already know, has been losing its purchasing power since the dawn of time due to us creating the Federal Reserve, excuse me, because what the Federal Reserve has done is print money. That's all they ever do. And that's their answer to everything. They print it out of thin air, and their excuse for it is the fact that they are the US government. From Brad Sherman himself, those were the words, right? As from a congressman. Hey, we're the US government. We could print money. Well, how is that holding up with the purchasing power of the US dollar? And also, I want to ask all of you that are out there, how do you feel about the purchasing power of the US dollar? Because I remember, $20 just 5 years ago, for an example. $20 would actually get you quite a bit. Now, $20 barely touches anything. I mean, I just went to the store the other day, and a bag of, frozen chicken tenders, for an example, is $10, $13, $14. Eggs, milk, bread, everything skyrocketing in cost, while the US dollar, well, it just loses value. But again, this is also why we continue to see the Brics moving forward on, yep, that's right, a gold-backed new currency. We do see Brics to ignore the US dollar and develop a new currency backed by gold, ? This was April of 2023. They've been planning this for a while. When you go over here, Russia, China may be preparing new gold-backed currency, but expert assures the US dollar, the safest currency today. The safest currency today. Let's go back to the report of Janet Yellen literally telling us that we are about to see economic catastrophes within the US if we do not raise the debt ceiling and print more money while our purchasing power has absolutely fallen to practically zero. We have printed 80% of the US dollars in existence in the last 22 months, yet the US dollar is still the safest currency today. I don't know if it's the safest currency, but I do know that it's one of the most comical currencies out there because it's still the reserve standard, even though the US dollar is practically valueless. But also, we do see the combined contribution of the 5 Brics nations to the global GDP has now reached 31.5%, surpassing the G7 countries, which account for 30.7%. They are now looking to expand. What will this look like after August? And yes, they actually have 19 other major players that want to become a part of the Brics nations, while the US is still focused on printing more money. All of these nations are getting absolutely slaughtered by the US's actions. And guess what? Guess who's next to get slaughtered by the US's actions? That's right, US citizens. Those out there that are about to see hyperinflation. Because as we do see the US dollar being avoided overseas, all of those US dollars are going to flock right back into the US, causing hyperinflation. See, we don't even need to print money in order to see hyperinflation because we've already done it to ourselves. With a lot of the dollars in circulation today, this is only going to continue to grow and grow and grow as we continue to print and print and print. But even if we don't print, all of this money is still out there. It could either be physical or digital because, again, most of this is still just numbers on a screen. But all of this money is going to start to pour back into the US as more and more nations move away from the US dollar, causing hyperinflation like we've never seen before. And I wonder, will they falsify that inflation or will it just be too large to ignore? I will definitely be watching for this. I'm definitely going to continue to keep a close eye out on this. Right now, I think everyone's focus point is on what the Treasury is going to do next, or I should say what the US will be doing next around what the Treasury is telling them around, oh, hey, it's all, economic catastrophes. If we do not print more money, if we do not raise that debt ceiling, all they want to do is do what they have been doing for decades and decades. And that is, well, print money, because that's all their answers are. I mean, it literally is throwing fuel to the fire. That's all it is. They don't do any actual economic work. They don't do anything to offset the debt. They just continue to print more debt. It's almost as if you are paying off your credit card with another credit card and just repeatedly doing the same thing over and over and over again, not paying any of that debt off, and instead collecting a whole bunch of interest on top of that debt. It is an unsustainable nightmare. And with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on if you guys have more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. Others, up to you all. Have a beautiful day or a beautiful night, wherever you guys are on this before. This has been Nick. Peace out, guys.